Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever it is in the world that you are, and welcome in to the Anti-Stall Racing IMSA series for round number 7 at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. I am your commentator, Ava, joined by the ever-lovely Gerard as well, controlling the cameras in the booth. And we are getting started for some GT3 qualifying here. But Gerard, before we do that, how are you doing, my friend?
It's been a tight one tonight. I just got home from work and had to hit the go live button, so we're on a roll today.
Absolutely, we love a bit of a time crunch here. It's definitely not something we should get used to, but you know, it happens sometimes. But yeah, as always, it is amazing to be back doing the ever lovely commentary, getting those sweet voices over the cars that you would probably prefer to hear, if I'm being honest. But you know, it's one of those, you know, you guys, as Sean Gardner decides that he's going to well, do some gardening going out of the corner. I mean, that's not the ideal line. If anybody is watching, trying to learn from these guys, obviously there's quite a few guys in here, very, very quick drivers we are aware of after the past sort of few weeks of racing. And yeah, that is definitely not the line you're going to want to follow. I'm not sure if that was a tech issue or something else, but hopefully he gets back out and can set a really good qualifying lap. But got some people in the chat. Always nice to see everybody talking, sharing the love for what we do here at Anti-Stall. We absolutely love it. And, you know, question of the day. Question of the day. We love a good question of the day. What is your favorite car in racing right now? It could be from any class, but what is your favorite car in racing right now? Let us know.
That's a really difficult question.
It is. It'll give us something to talk about at least. But speaking of talking and things that are going on, Qualifying laps have just started. Luigi Nespolino currently leading the way with a purple first sector. And, you know, Luigi, so far in GT3 at least, has been doing incredibly well this season. And, you know, all of the Leo Racing guys have been doing well in terms of the GT3 side of it. The P2, they've had a few issues, I think it's fair to say. They have had a few coming togethers in a few lap 1 scenarios, and it certainly hasn't been the smoothest of sailing for them. But Nespolino currently 4th in the championship, and is trailing quite a bit behind, I believe his teammate is at least Alessio Bernardi and Fabio Ponta. But maybe here at Catalunya we can actually see a change for potential positions. Obviously last time out at Le Mans we did have, I believe, Fabio Ponta in GT3 was the winner of that, followed off by Bernardi and Nespolino. So in terms of point value, all of the Leo Racing guys, 1, 2, 3, pretty good team result, right? You've got to be happy with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I say, the Leo guys have just been solid all season long, hasn't it? Like, they really have just been... In GT, at least, they seem like they're untouchable. Like, I can't remember which team it is, but the team that Raul drives for, they've been up there and they've been close. But it does definitely feel like the Porsche is by far one of the faster GT3 cars so far. Well, we're getting in a few comments here in the chat for your favourite race car so far. An interesting one from from one of our other commentators here in Wes, saying that a Mini Cooper S is his favourite race car right now.
For context, that's because he drives them himself.
Yeah, and it is good to see people wrapping their own cars. Obviously, if you do any racing in real life, let us know. It's always cool to see that people from both real world are doing the sim stuff, as well as, you know, maybe you started there and you're moving over to the sim stuff, or you started in sim and you're trying to make it in the real world. You know, it's always cool to see that sort of transition, and I think it's always going to become one of those talking points, the more we look at sim racing as a whole, of... Are people now using it more as like a training tool for the real world, or is there going to be that crossover eventually where you can just do both as a career choice and it's fine? You know, everybody's happy with it. We got a couple of people repping the AMG GT3 for the sound alone. From Steve there, the AMG GT3 is very nice. One thing I would say about the AMG is, to me, it sounds very rumbly. It's got like that really nice sort of like growl to it.
I really like the bubbling, the bubbling that it does. When you lift off throttle and start shifting down, it starts bubbling through the gears. It's fantastic sound.
Yeah, it almost sounds a bit like a backfire, but like. Not as pronounced. It's not like the car is popping and banging. It's not like you've turned the car into a pops and bangs map. It's more of like a, you know, we're just gonna settle down here, and it's just gonna be a nice.
From Simon,
I mean, he almost made it work. Yeah. He almost made it work.
An explanation for those pops and bangs, by the way, is it's obviously characteristic of a V8 engine, for the reason that you've got pistons pushing and pulling simultaneously on different sides of the engine. Meaning that you get a really, really weird vacuum of pressure happening in your exhaust, which creates all those little pops and stuff as the air is either forced or not forced to go through the exhaust.
So that's probably why with like V10s and V12s as well, you can kind of hear a similar sort of thing going on. Maybe it's not as pronounced, but it's still definitely there. On like a Boxer 4, for example. Yeah. Like just a regular Boxer engine, it's like, it doesn't really exist in the same way.
Yeah. Anywhere where you've got a piston pulling and a piston pushing simultaneously, that all exhaust down the same tube, you get those noises.
And what lovely noises they are. You know, that is one thing that I really am going to say that sim racing will have above the real world, is when all of the real world goes into, you know, we go into renewable fuels and we go into electric and we go into, you know, whatever fuel systems that we do to be sustainable moving forward, because, you know, that is a big talking point, especially in racing at the moment, is what can we do to be more sustainable. In sim racing, we don't have that worry. We can just make really loud cars and really nice noises, and we don't have to worry about killing the planet to do so, you know?
Although it does depend whether you need to buy that, you know, nuclear reactor to power your new 4090 GPU, you know?
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. Yeah, that is definitely another point that as technology improves, maybe we'll start getting to that level of everything is being powered by something that maybe is a bit too much for just like the general household, average, you know, the average Joe Schmo. But yeah, I mean, you know, sim racing and real world, it's starting to become now, I think, definitely a really good crossover between the two. As I've just had a look at Thomas's Amos's front there on his Ferrari. That looks, I'd say crunched is definitely one word for it. I'm not sure what happened there, but he does also start from the pit lane apparently, due to some impeding, I believe, was the penalty that came across. So yeah, interesting. I'm not sure if we ever caught any of that.
No, didn't catch that.
But yeah, so if Thomas Amos sets a higher qualifying lap than 9th and still starts from the pit lane anyway, there you go. You now know why. But yeah, the other thing as well is with the championship, we should probably talk about that. It's been now
7 races.
What's it been?
7
races.
Yeah.
So this is the 8th. Moving on
no,
to...
this is 7, sorry.
Sorry, this
That's
is
what I
the
mean, yeah.
Is it? We've had Indianapolis, Watkins Glen, Daytona, Fuji. Was that Canada before Road America?
No, Monza.
Monza before Road America.
Yep.
And then Le Mans.
Yep.
That's 7. So this is race 8 in Barcelona.
Just excuse me while I really, really quickly go and update the titles on YouTube. Oh no, I got it right on YouTube. I got it wrong in iRacing. Oh, we're fine.
Well, look, it happens. It's nice to at least talk about it, make sure that we know what's going on. But there has been 7 races in the championship. This is race number 8. And in terms of the GT3 standings, at the moment, Alessio Bernardi and Fabio Ponta are really the two taking the charge so far in the championship. 2,442 points versus 2,347 points, respectively, which sounds like a lot of points. But when you consider the fact that for a race win, you're gaining about 380, maybe slightly more due to the way that qualifying works. So, in fact, to have only just shy of 100-point difference really isn't as big as you might initially think. Raul Suarez, who is 3rd in the championship, currently isn't driving today, and I'm not sure if that's because they pulled out of the championship or whether they're just not racing in the last 2 rounds. But they didn't race at Le Mans, and he's not racing at Barcelona, so definitely in terms of a championship fight, I think we'll see it in GT3 at least, be between Bernardi and Ponta. And then in 3rd place, it is wide open between Nespolino and Glamsetter if Suarez isn't turning up. If Suarez turns up, then we have a bit more of a fight and a bit more of a championship battle going on. And yeah, I think for the top 3, we're definitely going to see some interesting fights. I'm not sure whether or not the Leo guys are going to fight between each other. Normally we do see that happen. But in GT3, it seems like it's a bit more tame than the fight in LMP2. The fight in LMP2 is definitely a lot more fierce, usually, between those guys. There's been a lot of incidents. I remember Monza and Fuji back-to-back, they had Turn 1, Lap 1 incidents, and it was the same drivers involved in both. So I don't think it's happened since, but it is, yeah, it is interesting to see, at least. And Steve in the chat does actually make a good point as of next season, and I'm not sure how much we can say as commentators. I don't know the full story, but iRacing have announced, well, I say iRacing announced, it was actually BMW who announced it, that the LMDH, the new big boy prototype, the BMW, whatever they're calling it, is coming into iRacing. Yep. And judging by some sort of speculative rumors that we have and patch notes that iRacing have sent us, we're expecting probably it to come within the next sort of 2 months, people are guessing. Sort of around January, February time, potentially. I mean, that would be really cool. Maybe it comes out slightly earlier. But in terms of how it's going to affect a series like IMSA, I think we're gonna, see more variety, hopefully, maybe. As I say, I'm not sure how much we can say. I don't know what's going on within Anti-Stall in terms of plans for next season, but it would be really cool to see all 3 classes running at the same time.
Yeah, it would be definitely be cool,
DH, P2, and GT3.
Yeah, it would be really, really cool, I think, to see that.
Fabio Ponta taking a bit more of the grass than he probably should. Paid for the whole track. Why not use the whole track?
I do believe GT3 should be heading back to the pit now, ready for
yes,
the LMP2s to come out.
I believe they're just finishing their final laps if they were already on one. So that'll be Lewis Grieg and Fabio Ponta are just going to finish their laps. Although I think Fabio, with that extension, is probably just going to drive it back to the pit lane or go back in manually.
Yeah. There is a lot of, there we go, LMP2 drivers queuing up now as well.
And the LMPs love a bit of queuing, don't they, at the end of the pit lane? They love it. I'm not sure what it is about a P2 driver and queuing at the end of the pit lane ready for the session to go live, but they always want to be first out, it feels like. The P2 drivers always want to have, they always want to get out in clean air, be the first one out on track, and potentially see where, where things go. And they're even lined up double file as well, which is, it's nice to see at least. And yeah, it's going to be some exciting qualifying in LMP2. I always like LMP in terms of qualifying because I feel like the cars are just, when you see them on the limit, the cars are just so fast that they, to say that they look like a race car should, I think is quite, it's quite a valid statement, I think. And these cars, when driven on the limit, you actually see movement, which is something that you don't see a lot in, like, Formula 1, for example. Those cars are, like, so high downforce that they're on rails and you don't really see the car sort of twitching or moving around under braking. Whereas in the P2, because yes, it has a lot of downforce, but it's not on that level. And the suspension isn't as clever and, the power isn't quite there. You actually see a lot more, you do see a lot more, as I say, movement. And, I think that goes to say that these drivers, when you see that car moving around so much, you see exactly what these drivers are capable of. And yeah, Costa said in the chat, wanted us to look at the paint. Honest opinion, I kind of like it, but it's not my favorite P2 paint that I've seen so far.
Trying to get a good shot on the cameras here.
I will say, out of all of the LMP liveries we've seen so far this season, I am personally more of a fan of Ben Seiss's livery. I think he had a really nice livery. He's not racing today, unfortunately. The Leo Racing guys have quite a nice, simple livery as well. A couple of drivers also rating their own their own nationalities on their liveries, which is really cool to see. Actually following the flag colours, which is always awesome. I love that sort of.
Oops,
That
someone went
thing,
round.
I believe that was Costa.
Yeah, I think it was.
And Frank Smits in the 5-star motorsport livery. Again, another really nice livery, that.
Very Golf-esque.
Yeah, I was going to say Golf or Senior Tech Alpine's livery when they were in the World Endurance Championship. For those of you who know, you know. If you don't know, take a look. Senior Tech Alpine, before they moved to LMP1 in the... Well, I say LMP1. LMDH or whatever the wet guys are calling it. When they moved into that with the old Rebellion car, they changed their livery, but their old livery in WEC was always very much that sort of blue and orange look. And I quite like it, honestly.
Got Hakon setting purples here.
And I would say it's surprising, but I think Hakon is he hasn't had the best of luck in terms of where his finishing position has been. But when he has been at a race and he has really put the time in, you can see, for example, last time out at Le Mans, he did incredibly well, I believe winning the race. So, or at least, if not winning, coming second and doing really well in qualifying. I'm still trying to work out the point system. It's
yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Complicated. It's one of the ways of doing it.
Lorenzo just got P1 there over Aiden Young.
That's Aiden Young. Yeah.
Hakon didn't set a time there, so I'm assuming he may have gotten off track halfway around.
Yeah, I think that was through turn 8 or turn 9, just going a bit too wide on the curbing. As I mean, as I was saying, Hakon, very, very quick driver in his own right. I imagine he'll be right up there with the Leo guys. Dylan van der Land's another one who's up there with the quick guys. Has been all season long. Frank Smith's a bit unlucky last time out at Le Mans, but he's been there or thereabouts. So we can't wait to see that fight develop. And I think, it's starting to get towards now the later part of the season where drivers are realizing where they are in terms of pace versus everyone else, who they're fighting with, who they're not fighting with. And in terms of the Leo Racing guys, they are very much aware that Dylan van der Land's is one that they have to pay attention to. Frank Smits, James Ebram. Even Benjamin Seiss. When Ben Seiss turns up, he's incredibly quick in his own right. Challenged them in the first 2 rounds. Didn't do so well at Daytona. Got a little bit unlucky. Missed Fuji and Monza, and then back at Road America again. Doing really well, putting himself podiums pretty much every race he's turned up. So, bar Daytona, which was again just unfortunate. It happens sometimes. Some results go your way, others don't. But in terms of Hakon as well, Hakon's pace is maybe not showing where he should be in terms of the championship standings, but in terms of his pace today, at least, he's definitely seeming like he has some in the locker. Maybe he's a fan of the Spanish track. I personally am not the biggest fan. I think I share that opinion with a lot of people, though. I don't think that's a hot take to say that you're not a huge fan of Barcelona. Preferred it back in the old days without the new chicane and where the final corner was actually a corner. That's my take.
I don't really mind Barcelona too much. Actually, I quite like it myself. But only in open wheelers.
Only in open wheelers.
Only in open wheelers. I don't particularly like driving GT3. Absolutely love F3s here.
Yeah.
F3s, I think, are the perfect car for this track.
Yeah, because I guess the thing with F3 is it's not... You're looking at sort of around the similar sort of pace as to what these P2 guys are doing, right? Normally in F3?
I'd imagine it's pretty similar, yeah.
And they're not, in terms of F3 cars, they're not the fastest thing out there in terms of straight line speed, but I think the thing with F3 is being open wheelers and being sort of what I would call medium downforce open wheelers. Like, they're not super high level like F1 is, and I would even argue that an F2 car nowadays is you could consider to be sort of high downforce. F3, there's a bit more play to it, you know. Everything's a bit more on the driver, I think, in F3.
Yeah.
And Barcelona definitely says whether or not you're a good driver. If you do well at Barcelona, chances are you'll do well at a lot of circuits, because I feel like it's one where you can have the best car setup possible for the track. And, like, you know, you could take, for example, if you were driving in an LMP2, you could take pole positions setup from here, but if you don't know the track that well, and you're sort of guessing on braking points, it's really going to punish you for it. Yeah, there's not a lot of runoff, and what runoff there is normally sand traps, so it's not exactly going to be a nice way to get back on track, and I'm not even sure if you can beach in iRacing, but or at least not in LMP2, but I know that is something that happens in real life sometimes. And yeah, there's just a lot of this track I think is quite technical as well from a driver's standpoint. Makes it a little bit harder, I think, on the drivers. And it'll be interesting to see, because it's also quite difficult to pass. It'll be interesting to see what happens regarding traffic. You know, where do the P2s decide that they're going to try and overtake the GTs? As
I think there's a lot of overtaking opportunity all the way around this track. But that's my personal opinion, of course. So, like, the first long corner, so after the first chicane, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is that right, sweeping right. Oh, whoa! Whoa! Oh, okay, you aborted.
Izzo was dicey a bit there.
Yeah, so the long sweeping first right is, I think the P2s are going to be able to go around the outside of the GT3s there.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got plenty of time to do it as well, with that little bit of a straight just ahead of it as well.
Yeah.
And then into both chicanes is generally an overtaking point as well.
It is if the GT3 doesn't fight you.
True.
If the GT3 decides that it wants to go side by side with you through there, it's not going to be so easy.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see whether or not people are smart with their sort of decision making here at this track.
Yeah.
Especially the GTs. I think the GTs need to very much put their pride aside in a lot of these situations if they're battling with someone. And if an LMP2 comes across them during, like, you know, into one of the first chicanes, or, you know, the chicane near the end of the lap, they need to sort of be like, okay, it's, you know, if I let them through, yes, it's probably only going to take off, like, 3/10 off my lap, but at least I get through safe. Whereas if I fight this guy, I mean, I probably still lose that 3/10, and there's a potential that we crash. So, you know, we're going to see, I think, that sort of decision-making on how easy are people going to let each other through. Because, again, the GTs have no real right to give up the position. They can absolutely stay on their line if they want to. It's on the faster class, as far as I'm aware at least. It's on the faster class to get past safely. I'm not sure if that's ever been changed in the rules, but as far as I was aware at least, that seems to be how it works. And Dylan Van Lands, I was saying, was a driver that we were going to look to as to potentially challenge the likes of the Leo Racing guys, and hasn't really found any mega pace yet, at least around this circuit. And you know, yes, he's only 3/10 off of P2, but when Lorenzo Castellani is 9/10 ahead of you and going faster, I think there's almost a feeling of, well, Castellani might just run away with it, and then everybody else is going to be fighting behind him. Yeah, you almost need to challenge him into turn one and hope that you can do something about what his pace is, because it looks electric right now. And just as I say that, I believe that was Hakon in P2. Just upped himself there into P2 after improving by almost 6/10 of a second to get to where he is. And, you know, when you look at, oh, I've improved my lap by 6/10, you're probably thinking that'd be enough. At least in terms of how close this field normally is, you'd be thinking, right, that's probably going to set me near pole. And then you look at it and realize you're still 4/10 off what Castellani's doing, and Castellani's going quicker. And hopefully Hakon isn't getting demotivated by it, but yeah, that is one stellar lap from Castellani. And knowing that Castellani can be quicker, Hakon deciding that maybe there's a shortcut there that nobody found out about. But yeah, Lorenzo Castellani still improving on his lap. Purple through Sector 1, purple through Sector 2. We'll have to wait and see how he can finish out this lap. Hopefully no 1x. That looked very close to 1, I must admit. So if he hasn't had one yet, it might be there. But it's looking like he's still good for it. Is he good enough to improve on his lap time?
Yep, by a 10th.
And yeah, 132.1. And I want to say that's probably going to be about where we'll see pole. I don't think he'll improve any further than that. Like, it will be mental if we see somebody do now a 131.9 or like a 132 flat. Like, it's gonna require a lot to get there. Hakon and Frank, I believe, are back in the pit lane, so they're not going to go out anymore. Izzo's still on track, still panning around, trying to set a slightly faster lap. And who else have we got trying to improve on their laps? Neil Ferrier's trying to improve, but I'm not seeing whether or not he is actually doing so. Although, in fairness, he has just started a lap, so I'm sure we'll find out relatively soon, as Izzo does improve to put himself in P3, which means that the Leo Racing guys are going to be right next to each other. There is Costa spinning it, and unfortunately that will put his qualifying over and done with. But the Leo Racing guys will start, obviously, P1 and P3 at the moment, provided nothing else changes. Neil Ferrier is up on his lap time, though, so if he can find 2/10, which is, in fairness, if you're pushing like an absolute madman, 2/10 is normally a big ask. And he is down in Sector 2. We'll have to wait and see what his lap time can end up being. This is obviously his final lap. This is his only shot to get himself further up than P5 on the grid. Rounding out through the final corner, we'll have to wait and see what the lap time is when he crosses the line. Izzo is also on a lap, but I believe is aborting it, as he is not up on his time. And again, down through Sector 3, so I don't think that's going to be an improvement from Neil there. But Izzo again, down in Sector 1, down in Sector 2. I can't imagine this will be an improvement in lap time, and especially bouncing off that curb on the exit. So much speed loss if you do it. And yet he still goes up in the final sector and improves his lap time. So clearly he wasn't actually down that much in Sector 1 and Sector 2. But he does improve, does go P2, but it's still 5/10 off of his teammate. Lorenzo, I swear, is a cheat code.
I do believe that we go to a warm-up session, or is it straight to gridding?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have a 5-minute warm-up. So for those of you who need to, grab yourself some refreshments, you can feel free to do so.
Which is exactly what I'm about to do.
Yep, grab yourself some refreshments, some popcorn. We love it. We love the snacks. as we wait for this warm-up. Going to be interesting to see how these drivers handle turn 1, especially all being so close together. Turn 1 notoriously tricky, as we see all the GTs pretty much going out on track at the same time. P2's also following in suit, trying to get a few more laps in before the real racing happens. You know, as we watch them in warm-up, we may actually start to see what the P2s are going to be doing in traffic, obviously not being as good on corner exit straight away, but once they do get going, the P2s are definitely much faster in a straight line, obviously quicker through the corners, so anytime you can go around the outside or cut up the inside is always makes for a nice and easy overtaking opportunity in a P2. Just have to be careful on corner exit, and especially the GT guys, they need to be aware of that the P2s aren't always the fastest on corner exit. As we see Alessandro Izzo trying to go the long way around the outside, but not really doing an amazing job. Probably went out a little bit too wide and just had to scrub off a lot of speed before he can get back on it and continue on his merry way. I imagine this will be where we'll see most of the LMP action in terms of overtakes of P2s on GTs. Down the big old long straight. Flat out last corner in the LMPs. No idea if it's flat out in the GTs, but I'm sure someone will let me know at some point. I have a feeling it is. Just depends on how you take the chicane. Let us know where you're watching from in the chat as well. Always love to see how international our audience is. Always surprises me that we've got people watching from all sorts of wonderful places. And also, if you have a favourite driver, let them know that you're watching. I'm sure they'll watch back the stream at some point. Final corner is not quite flat from Steve. Okay, good to know, good to know. So again, in terms of overtaking opportunities then, final corner is possibly one that's a little bit, I mean, risky, as we see from Hakon Grebstad. That was an interesting move, I think, to say the least. We've got Mad Luke watching from South Africa. Awesome to see. Awesome to see. Favourite driver is Thomas Amos. Costa cheering for himself. Costa, you might also need to, at some point, give me a pronunciation of your last name. I will struggle. Hope you don't mind, but I want to get it right. And with 20 seconds left of the warm-up, I imagine these guys will start to really think about the race to come and what their strategy is maybe talking with some teammates to get some interesting tidbits, maybe about sort of other knowledge on other drivers and how some of the P2s were behaving in the warm-up session. As Luigi's taking my favourite part of the circuit, the bit that doesn't get used anymore. Thomas Amos is my brother, so he's my favourite. Yeah, that makes sense. Always got to root for family. It's cool though. Always cool to see. Cars number 8 and... sorry, not 8. Cars number 83 and 9 are to start from the pit lane. So that is, I do believe... car number 9 is...
Thomas Amos.
Thomas Amos. And car 83? Is that another GT? Is that Tim Perry?
83 is... a good question. Yes, Tim Perry.
I believe it's Tim Perry.
That is correct.
But your grid for the IMSA race here at Barcelona. We have the Leo Racing team starting on pole position and also P2, Lorenzo Castellani and Alessandro Izzo respectively. Then we do have Hakon Grebstad taking P3 with Frank Smits behind him in P4. Neil Ferrier rounds out top 5 and Dylan van der Lands in P6. Sebastian van den Heuvel in P7 with Aiden Young P8. Roberto de Flips in P9 and Costa P10. Then for your GTs we do have Fabio Ponta and Luigi Nespolino again. The Leo Racing cars 1, 2 and 3 with Alessio Bernardi there for your top 3 in GT. Lars Van Ryn in P4 with Sean Gardner P5. Simeon, I believe, in P6. I believe that's how you pronounce that, but I'm sure he'll correct me in the future. Lewis Grieg in P7. João Diaz P8. But we'll have to work out the rest of them. I believe the rest of them were starting from the pit lane. I believe Glamsetter was P9 and then the other two starting from the pit lane. But here we go.
He's gone.
The LMP2s are off. He has gone. The Leo Racing guys did jump a little as Lorenzo Castellani will lead the field away, followed off by Alessandro Izzo. Hakon already having to defend from Van der Lands, as I believe maybe we can take a look back, see if everyone has made it through okay. Aiden Young, I believe, had a good start as well, made the jump, as we see a swarm of yellow heading into turn 1. All of the Leo Racing cars followed off by all of the other yellow cars from all of the other teams. Yellow, very popular colour here in the GT3 series. A little bit of contact there as well before we switch back to see what the LMPs are doing. LMPs very much in single file already, and I'm pretty sure that is where we will see, as there is a big touch there between, I believe that was Glamsetter and the Lamborghini of Simeone, and yeah, just a little bit unlucky, I think, as all of them fighting for position out of turn 2, going into turn 3. Let's weave a little under the brakes. I guess the gap was there, but closing. And yeah, I think just a little bit of an unlucky move. I imagine they'll call it a racing incident, but we'll have to wait and see, as Hakon Grebstad is now trying to hunt down those Leo Racing cars, as Aiden Young up 3 positions off the start, and potentially is going to gain another one if Dylan van der Lands isn't careful and keeps making the mistakes he is. Aiden Young doing actually a cracking job there in the HPDS racing car, which I don't even believe is a HPDS racing car. I believe they are, that car livery is a different team. But yeah, he needs to let us know that one, as he does take a look to see if he can get up the inside, but doesn't commit to making a move, maybe a little bit too far back. Doesn't obviously want to end his race on lap 2 of an hour-long race that we have here. There is I believe, a mandatory pit stop, or at least these cars aren't going to go the distance on one fuel tank. The LMP2s definitely not, even if they're on 100%, which they're not. And there is a post-race penalty for car number 218 for causing a collision there, which I believe would have been Christian Glamsetter for that contact that he had there with was it car number 5? car number 5 is the leader of the race, Lorenzo Castellani. I don't think that was the right car number.
Yeah, seems like a mistake that is, but we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll realise that maybe they forgot a 0. As it was car number 90 was the one that got involved with that. And
we're broadcasters and stewards now, eh?
well, you know, it's... Look, I'm just saying, we're gonna pick up on each other's stuff, you know? If we feel like something was missed. Likewise, I'm sure if they feel like something is missed, they'll let us know.
And we'll ignore them.
Yeah, it's all part of working as a team. And,
Oh, Aiden. Not Aiden. Who's that? That's Dylan.
Yep, that is Aiden made the move on Dylan. Dylan was looking to fight back, but can't really find a way past Aiden. And Aiden's making that LMP feel very wide right now. Are we sure that Aiden isn't actually driving a BMW? Because he's blocking the entire road and more. Dylan van der Lands can't really find a way past. And
hey! Correction, it was 90. Okay. Thank you, Race Control. And that's Race Control in the chat saying, you saw nothing.
We obviously have to give a massive shout out to them, though. We can't go racing without them, and they give up their free time to be here. So again, it's a massive shout out to everyone involved. And if you guys want to get involved as well, feel free to follow us along on socials, as well as get yourself involved for the last few rounds, because we have some amazing races coming up. And you know, one of my favourite tracks, at least on this calendar, is coming up, I believe, next week at Sebring. And Sebring is one that I definitely really enjoy. For those of you who have never raced there or seen a race there,
I'm excited because I've never been there. Never raced it.
It is.
Never even broadcasted it.
Oh, Sebring is special. It's special. It is. It looks probably more dull than it actually is.
Well, I've heard that it's essentially a bumpy car park. Yeah, I think that's fair. But there was a switch for second place here in GT3 with the Leo Racing cars. Alessio Bernardi finally getting past his teammate of Luigi Nespolino, and Nespolino dropping back a little. I'm not sure whether there's some sort of like team strategy going on here. Maybe Alessio just had the better pace and just couldn't find his way past. So they've gone, right, we're just gonna, you know, we're gonna switch up and we'll wait to see what happens. As indeed, Alessio just goes and sets the fastest lap of the race. We have had a crash. Let's take a gander what happened here. We actually had two crashes at the same time there, so I'm wondering if...
So...
Oh.
Well, there's one of them.
Uh-oh, I can see what's coming here.
Hopefully it's not what I think it is.
Oh, wow. It wasn't even the other one.
Yeah, that was...
Unfortunate.
Yeah, not good. Not good is what that was.
Yeah.
Tim Perry trying to avoid it,
and he apparently had another two crashes after that event as well. I think he maybe damaged his car and couldn't quite bring it home.
So this is Lewis, tries to avoid his teammate who's rejoining, or just gets it all sorts of wrong and gets hit a couple times, admittedly.
Yeah, I don't think
it round.
Yeah, he didn't have to give the second nudge in there. I think he could have at least reversed it out.
And then that car is very much crabbing.
Ooh, wow, he goes sideways.
That is a one broken AMG. And that is where that car's probably going to stay, is back in the pit lane for a little while longer. So, yeah, I'm sure that Lewis maybe not happy with that result. Losing it on the curbing, very easy to do. Something we'll have to watch out for, I'm sure, throughout this race.
Here we see my favourite livery of the series so far. Because I also race those liveries on all my cars. So there's a man of taste in front of us right here.
Any Super GT fans in the chat? No, we're not talking about the Alex Albon lookalike. I mean the GT racing in Super GT. Japanese Global Touring Championship. It's a mega racing if you've never watched it, by the way. It is wild to see all the different cars that get involved within Super GT.
Just turn up for the anime liveries.
Yep. You and I think most of the fans of it. But I will say, in terms of the race so far, we've had already quite a bit of action, and maybe not in the way that we were thinking we'd be getting action.
It's been 8 minutes.
It's been 8 minutes, and already we've had people crabbing, we've had people bouncing over sausage curbs, trying to overtake people around the outside where they probably shouldn't be. We've had Lars Van Ryn currently being assaulted by a BMW, I think is the best way to put it. The BMW looks rather large in his mirrors, I'm sure. It's already a pretty large car, but you put it up close to the back end of a Mercedes, and all of a sudden the Mercedes driver is, not making some nice noises, I imagine, in that car. Very much scared ones, as that BMW is on the brakes, seemingly to be very, very close to what that Mercedes is doing, if not slightly faster. Although, I will say, if the BMW doesn't get a move on, he will have another Mercedes to worry about, and it's the one behind him. So, going into turn 1, and will we see the Mercedes grunt from Sean start to put himself ahead? And not yet, doesn't look like it.
Oh, you went for a nose then.
Oof. And I think the BMW now of Sean is very much looking front and back, trying to decide who does he focus on. He's got his teammate ahead of him, and I'm pretty sure he's probably given the hurry up to his teammate, saying, hey, you know, I've got this really angry Mercedes driver behind me. I'm sure you know what those Mercedes drivers are like. Help me. Trying to, you know, maybe work together to break the tow. But we'll have to wait and see what they do. The car number 56 and 666, both on the same team. Lots of sixes. And, yeah, the boosted guys. Also, Tim Perry, I believe, also races for them as well. So there are 3 boosted cars. Tim Perry's livery, very different from these two, I believe. Tried to just avoid the amount of yellow that we see on screen every week.
Seems to be a very, very popular colour at the minute. It's a bit strange.
Yeah, yellow is by far the most popular colour, I think, at least in the GT. I mean, oh no! That is not how you take that corner. Locking the brakes there and just spinning on, I believe, spinning on throttle. I'm not sure whether or not that was some sort of traction control things, or whether or not that was just putting the power down too early, but normally these GT cars kind of hard to spin in a lot of cases, so something really must have gone on wrong there to cause that car to snap so violently. And again, it was right in front of his teammate, so thankfully no collisions as we start getting finally into some traffic opportunities, and Aiden Young is very much being attacked here by Dylan van der Lands. Dylan van der Lands trying to... Is he bump drafting him down straight? Both of them really trying to catch up to Hakon then in front, clearly. And, yeah, Hakon is very much, I guess, going to be... I guess Hakon's in a situation where, yeah, he has that 4-second gap, but if if these drivers work together like they are, then maybe there's something here. Maybe they can start catching up to him. I'm not sure what the pace difference is like. I'm sure we can find that out in a second. But Dylan van der Lands dropping off a little bit off of Aiden Young.
So, he didn't crash, but I just had some sandwiches saying that Luigi Nespolino went off track for about 8 seconds, which is quite a significant amount of time. So let's have a look what happened here.
So, Nespolino, that is, touches the grass on entry, applies the brakes, and, yeah, that is where you're spending a lot of your time if you go off there. That is not something you want to do very often. As, speaking of the boosted cars, there is the other one that I was talking about earlier.
They've threaded the needle on that one.
Yeah. So difficult to make the move, especially in those chicanes. And was that a move around the outside there? Neil in the final corner. I mean, that is commitment, bravery, probably a few other choice words that I'm not going to say on stream, but yeah, I think Neil needs to, I mean, he's trying his best to keep up. You can see that. He's pushing, giving everything he can. And I think he's doing a pretty good job at keeping up with what the pace is of Dylan van der Lande's, if not being quicker. I mean, Dylan van der Lande's last lap, a 1:35.3. I'm not sure if that was due to traffic or anything else, but yeah, Neil was faster last lap by 4/10, pretty much. So we'll start to see that gap come down. And there will be 3 LMP2s all battling really close to each other soon. We have P5 Dylan van der Lande's, P6 Neil Ferrier, and then P7 Sebastian van den Heuvel. And that is if Sebastian can make his way through the traffic a little bit easier. Big lockup from Neil. Thankfully manages to get the car slowed down enough and doesn't have the brake bias too far to the rear, so he can definitely make use of just slowing the car down. Sebastian van den Heuvel a little bit aggressive on throttle. You saw he had to really correct the steering, open it up to avoid any unfortunate incidents. Could have probably made the move on the BMW ahead of him through that corner, but he's going to back off and play the patient game. Rightly so, I think. As big crash for Sebastian van den Heuvel.
Wow.
That is up on 2 wheels. I'm not sure what happened there, as we were on board with him, but that is, I want to say that is a mistake from Sebastian. I don't think that's on the BMW. I think the BMW was squeezed all the way out to the outside of the circuit, so I don't think, yeah, that's, I want to say that's Sebastian's mistake, and I believe he's ended up taking out, yeah, the BMW is now in the pit lane.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And yeah, that car is now totaled, I imagine. That car is gone. Sebastian van den Heuvel.
At least he hasn't got far to go to the pit.
Well, yeah, that is true. I suppose that is one upside. I suppose the BMW didn't have far to make it, but even still, that is a big crash, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be looked at.
Oh, it's going to have to be, yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if Sebastian just didn't quite judge the width of his car correctly, or I don't know. He was way too close on the exit. Perhaps he just tried to overspeed it a little bit too much.
Eventually, maybe he thought the car would turn a bit more than it did, and when it didn't, he just understeers off into him. But regardless on what the situation was, definitely avoidable, and Sebastian is, gonna be very much just chilling in the pit lane. That is not where you want to be if you're a Mercedes. What on earth happened there? As João Diaz... Oh, I'm seeing the looks of a horror story with this LMP.
Oh.
That is...
right at the back of him.
If you're that LMP, you have to commit on the first attempt. Like, you can't just half it like that. That's not a good look.
I thought for a moment he got stuck on the sausage curb as well, because I've definitely done that before.
Thankfully he didn't, and he's able to get back in the race, but yeah. Awkward from the LMP. You would imagine that with the better grip, you would imagine that he ends up going a little bit further than that, but unfortunately not. As that is a post-race penalty for car number 93.
Sebastian. Post-race penalty, Sebastian.
Yeah, and that was for the incident with the BMW, I imagine. Yep, that was the incident there. So, 5 seconds for flipping someone into the pit lane.
Perhaps it was reduced for letting him get back to his pit.
Well, yeah, you know, you at least helped him out enough.
Oh, a bit tight.
As
Oh my god.
some interesting developments happening here, as this P2 is all over trying to overtake these GT cars, and these GT cars doing what they probably shouldn't be doing and keeping up with them in the corners is making things a little bit interesting. Tim Perry very much held up there, same with the Mercedes behind him, and what it's going to mean is that Mercedes might actually get a chance to fight him, and I'm not sure if there was an overtake made as well.
I think
I believe there was.
We might see a fight for P1 and GT3 here.
As indeed it looks as though Fabio Ponta and Alessio Bernardi have been avoiding all of the chaos up until this point.
You've said it now. It's been
Very much avoiding all the chaos.
It's bit of a jump. It's been nearly 20 minutes, out of this hour-long race, so I'm sure there's still time for them to hit some chaos.
Well, taking out the
the
cones on exit is a nice place to start. From Alessio Bernardi, decides that those cones aren't quite doing their job properly, and has to test them, has to make sure that the marshals are doing their job as well, putting the cones back in between cars going fast if they can. But yeah, Alessio Bernardi trying to really attack his teammate here, and with the pace difference that Alessio has had over everyone else in GT so far, his pace has been absolutely stellar. He's setting fastest lap after fastest lap, and all of his lap times are quick as well. And there is the post-race penalty. I don't know for what car, but there was one for either car number 29 or 28.
I assume it's 28 that got the post-race penalty.
Being the faster class versus...
Yeah.
Which car number is 29, actually? 29 is the slower, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it was the Good Smile livery, so...
Yeah.
There we go, they just updated
All
for
makes
us.
sense. Speak and we shall receive.
That's our job, isn't it?
Well, we like to talk about the racing. We like to pick up on things. It's what we do. We analyze. We chat probably more than we should sometimes. That's why we do the job, isn't it? As commentators, that's what we enjoy doing. We just talk for hours about cars going around in circles, effectively.
Andy in chat saying, "Mate, it's been a long week." Of course, our race control right there.
Well, we like to have the banter.
Especially when they're not in the same room as us.
Yes, if they're in the same room, it's a little bit more awkward, but I'm sure we'll hear something about that. And just speaking of things starting to hot up, this battle between Alessio Bernardi and Fabio Ponta is going to be one that's very much going to be interesting to see how it develops. Both drivers pretty much matching times, a tenth here or there, but yeah, Alessio knows that his teammate ahead of him is probably very similar in pace. Knows that he's probably going to be up there in terms of raw, talent as well as a driver. They've probably raced each other lots. They've raced with each other lots, I imagine, as well. So I reckon there's going to be a few mind games between Alessio and Fabio here as to, what they do, whether or not they look like they're going to send a move when they don't, or, maybe flashing of the lights and, trying to put each other off. There may be some little tricks that get done, and certainly we'll have to wait and see how this battle develops. As in GT, there always seems to be a battle in GT. If there's a battle on track, it always seems to be GT is at least doing something on almost every single corner, and indeed showing us why so far when you've got drivers of such similar skill in very equal machinery. As the P2 is going to try and get involved, maybe spice up this battle a little bit more, but I don't know, it's awkward for a P2, I think, in this final sector when you catch these GT cars, because you sort of just have to sit behind and wait until the straights. I think the final few corners, actually, the GTs, if the GTs are quick, then the GTs are pretty similar in pace to what most P2 drivers are doing in the final sector, I think. I don't think the performance difference between a P2 and a GT is massive, as this fight between Aiden Young and Dylan van der Lands is still battling on. Dylan van der Lands trying to put as much pressure as he can on Aiden, but Aiden doing a great job so far of really just stopping any sort of overtake from being done, making his car as wide as possible. There's something I said earlier was maybe that Aiden Young thinks that he's a BMW driver and likes the big wide cars, and you know, I'm not sure if has Aiden ever done any GT racing in ASR? Do we know?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I was catching up on the Discord. I was absorbing other information for me to speak on stream, but so I didn't hear the question.
Aiden Young, has he ever done any GT racing before?
I think he has with us before, yeah. I think. Maybe in the last season? Potentially.
Would be interesting to see if anyone knows what car he drove. Want to see whether or not he did drive a BMW. But the move by Dylan van der Lands had been made while we were talking absolute nonsense. And to be fair, Dylan made it look actually rather easy. Finally able to make the move, and once the move was done, he's now running away with it. So clearly the dirty air is a factor on these P2 cars. Maybe Aiden Young's tyres going off a little. Maybe just the setup not quite right on the lower fuel as well, as we have already had one pit stop for these LMP2 drivers. One of them has already come into the pit lane, and that was almost going to be catastrophic there for Aiden Young, turning in rather aggressively across that Ferrari front nose. But no contact was made as far as I can see. And Thomas Amos is now being attacked by another P2. As all of the P2s...
Oh wow, they're diving. They are diving in there.
Yep. So we've got our race leader, Alessandro Izzo, into the pit lane. Now I'm curious, where does his teammate come out? Lorenzo Castellani. Where is Castellani? Castellani's coming around the final corner now.
He's going to make it.
He is on the straight, opening up the taps. Is
He's going to make
Izzo
it.
moving? He is not. So Castellani is now our... I say is now our race leader. Was always our race leader. But how big is going to be that gap between the two of them? That is something that I want to see.
10-ish
the Leo
seconds,
Racing
I think,
guys.
maybe. Something around.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see next lap, obviously. The timings immediately coming out the pit lanes are going to be a little bit weird. So... Yep, Lorenzo Castellani very much playing the pit strategy game and making it work, undercutting Alessandro Izzo, his teammate. And again, Hakon Grebstad is back in P3 as well. So that battle, or at least the top three, haven't changed positions, sort of staying around the same gaps they were before the pit stops. I'll be interested to see if Dylan van der Lands decides to come into the pit lane this time round. I believe he is going through the last corner. I'll have to wait and see if he comes in. He does not, so... Dylan van der Lands still trying to extend the pit window. I do wonder whether or not Dylan is actually going to try... And again...
Oh, did he finally make it?
Move round the inside for Alessio Bernardi.
That looks like he almost let him, though, that did. To me.
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
I wonder if...
Going down into the hairpin. Does he fight back?
Is
very close to.
Gonna pit? I wonder if Fabio's gonna pit, which is why he was let past.
Potentially, but that
because-
is a weird place to do it. Normally, you would want to let them pass on the straight, I would have thought. So unless there was a mistake prior, which led to the move happening,
Well,
Alessio Bernardi is now officially through.
yeah, if Alessio's been behind, he
And
is.
Theo is in the pits,
So
so
Alessio's been behind for so long that he will have saved all that fuel from being in the slipstream, meaning he can potentially push the car past the 30-minute mark and maybe get that one stop.
now, if you're Fabio Ponta in this situation, you qualified on pole position. Surely, if the team is trying something like this, you would want to put yourself in a position where you can be the one who pulls that off.
True.
Because I'd imagine
very true.
if they are trying that one-stop strategy, which, by the way, I think is quite bold, I don't think personally it will work, because the thing is Alessio is going to need all that slipstream back again on the second stint to match it.
Very true.
So
It definitely depends on where Fabio... I mean, Fabio came out in P3, essentially. So all that has to happen now is Costa has to pit. Fabio...
he's in P2, by the way. So he is
sorry,
in the LMP2.
my bad. I misread my my classes for a second there. So yeah, he's still in P2, and he's one of the fastest cars on track. He is the fastest car on track, isn't he? So
I believe it was switching between Alessio and Fabio. Alessio was definitely posting quick lap times. I believe actually does have the lap, or at least this race record so far, with a 142.8 versus Fabio's 143.0. So maybe there is some strategy being played here of the GTs just
Alessio's
don't want to
gone
end
in.
up like the LMP2s have.
and he's going to come back out after the 30-minute mark.
So, potential for a one-stop here then for Alessio Bernardi.
Now,
But it is going to... I think that's bold, isn't it?
Well, he's got 30 seconds behind him to Fabio. I reckon he's going to come out right behind him.
And the thing if you're Fabio is you didn't get that opportunity to have the
He's going.
you didn't get the opportunity to have that slipstream. And yeah,
There he
as
is.
you said, Alessio will come out in second place, a few seconds off, but still in second place. And if you're Fabio, you are leading this race by 6 seconds, maybe 7. But you also need to realise that the guy behind you, your teammate, has now basically committed to the one-stop strategy.
I think if
And
he can
in
get back in
doing
the
so-
slipstream, or even just do a good, like, few laps of fuel saving to give himself an extra lap, he'll make it.
Which I think now, if that's where they're going, I don't think Fabio can do that. I think Fabio needs to splash and dash right at the end.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Just got some telemetry. Costa has crashed.
So what has happened here then? Where is this on circuit? This is through turn 8 and turn 9. Turning into the fast sweeper. And
Whoa,
yeah,
sausage curb.
that is exactly what I thought was going to happen.
And we've got another
Well,
crash
that's
from
what the
Sebastian
crash
as
is
well,
happening.
coming up.
So
Oh, no.
Sebastian Vettel and Huval, this literally just happened. Similar sort of thing? Or is this going to be worse?
Oh, always makes me nervous when we get telemetry with them near other cars.
Just a spin up.
no! Oh no! Oh, they were so close.
But Sebastian Vettel and Huval is not having the greatest race, is he? In fairness. I think that's
Good point.
fair to say, is that he's not been having the best time of it, but he's still out there, he's still pushing as much as he can to try and regain any sort of position, but yeah, I think maybe the circuit is not the best for him. Not sure how much he said he likes this circuit, maybe not too much, so We'll have to wait and see whether or not he has any sort of comments to make on whether or not he enjoys this circuit, because I wonder if he's on the same bandwagon that I know a lot of people are in, disliking Catalunya. As he will send it up the inside of Alessio Bernardi and get through, hopefully this time without any spins, post getting past him, as Alessio Bernardi now has to worry about Hakon Grebstad as well coming through, although I believe Hakon will be passed way before he really has to do anything about it. So again, Alessio Bernardi currently 8 seconds off Fabio Ponta. So if he's trying that one stop, he's really going to have to start fuel saving by himself, which is not the easiest thing to do. As I believe in LMP, I don't think there's any close battles so far. I believe everyone in LMP is just sort of... they're in their own little world now, I think, on track, and they're just sort of trying their best to survive.
Sorry, just
is
the
the best way
comment.
to say it.
The comment from Costa in the this made me laugh a bit. Just because I I get telemetry on my screen saying Costa's crashed, and then in the chat that instantly comes up. That's amused me greatly. But yeah, we apologise, Costa. We apologise that the track is not to your liking particularly.
I mean, yeah, I share the opinion that the track is not maybe as good as it could be, but at the same time, you know, I think it's still quite an iconic circuit, and one that, for a lot of drivers at least, it's one that really should get practiced. It's on quite a few calendars, especially in iRacing itself. I believe IMSA run this almost every season.
Almost all the open wheelers do as well.
So one that you are, if you are on iRacing, it is one that unfortunately you may have to begrudgingly drive if you're on that.
Oh, Radicals do it as well, but the Radicals do it at night time, and I believe they missed the last chicane.
That is one thing I have noticed, is that they do that on a lot of series. They run the historic layout.
Yeah.
And that is, I believe, in almost all series except for the open wheeler. I believe.
I believe so, yes.
Because I know IMSA didn't do it for a while.
Oh, whoa! Lorenzo in P1 there, just keeping the car just only on track.
Yeah, Lorenzo is really pushing as hard as he can, and honestly, with the gap he has to his teammate, I'm wondering whether or not he is actually giving 100%, or whether he is just sort of maybe easing off a bit, maybe like 98% instead, you know, just that race pace that's safe.
Looks like
and then you start thinking those things, and he goes and slides out through one of the corners, and maybe you're starting to think, you still pushing?
I think we've just got to the part of this race where we have to wait for something to happen, because if you look at all those times on the timing sheet now, everyone is more than seconds apart. So
yeah,
it's kind
this tends to happen in endurance racing.
Yes,
it does happen.
I think it's going to come down to the next level of pit stops, if they have to do them, which I think a lot of them will, most of them will.
The P2 is definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And also it's going to come down to the classes overtaking each other as well. So that's going to be interesting. Let's drop on this bit of doohickey on screen. That'll show us exactly where the classes are. So Lorenzo's come up quickly to the back of the GT3s.
Which, again, you would think if they're so spread out as they are right now, actually getting past them, I think, for the P2s is going to be a lot easier. The LMPs are going to be... I think the LMPs prefer overtaking the GTs when there's not a whole bunch of them in the same place. It's yeah, it's a little bit easier when you just have that one-on-one versus the you know, what the GTs normally is like, where you've got like 3 or 4 of them within the same corner that you're trying to like slice through. I remember watching the Silverstone World Endurance Championship back in, I believe it was 2018, a year before COVID, and Jensen, no, not.
Wow, do apologise, Discord issue there.
No, I got cut off.
Yeah, you
mid-story.
You did get cut off mid-story. The last thing I heard was Jensen.
Yeah, it wasn't Jensen Button. It was Fernando Alonso who was driving for Toyota at the time. Jensen Button was driving for SMP Racing for that one, and he was coming into, I believe it was Stowe, the fast right-hander before the final few corners on the Grand Prix layout, as Lorenzo's going to try and just slice his way through these Mercedes the best that he can. And yeah, to see Fernando Alonso basically going 3 wide with the GTs and then having to slice through another like 2 or 3 of them and overtaking a P2 all in like the space of the entry to the corner to the exit of the corner was it was wild to see. I actually had to rewatch the onboard from that car after the race happened, because where I saw the move live, and obviously I was freaking out because, you know, everyone was so close, and like Fernando was just like really trying to push as hard as he can, and I had to rewatch from the onboard to realize just how like in control Fernando looked of the situation. And it's something that in these LMPs, I think in sim racing, you kind of get that air of like uncertainty to try and go for these moves because of the... I think it's because of the way that the sim racing works. Obviously, you're racing with people from all over the world. You know, we've got people from Scotland, we've got people from America, we've got people from, you know, Australia, South America, you know, all over the world, and they're all battling together on the same track. And it does mean that sometimes we hear that dreaded word netcode, and yeah, contact happens where it probably shouldn't have and probably never would have in real life, but does due to iRacing trying to compensate for the latency between different drivers. And yeah, I think it's something that we'll never see those types of really aggressive cut moves from prototypes in iRacing, at least not for a little while yet, until the internet starts improving and latency is less of an issue. I don't know how you would fix latency, because, you know, it's kind of...
Fiber optics everywhere.
It takes time.
That's the solution, is fiber optics everywhere, but most countries don't have the cash for that.
And not only that, it would still take time for you to get there.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, of course it would.
You would still have a lot of latency, but maybe not as much as Aiden Young and Neil are soon going to be battling. I believe Aiden Young, ever since Dylan overtook him, I have noticed that Aiden has dropped off quite a bit in terms of pace. I'm not sure whether or not that's due to Aiden's just generally struggling when he doesn't have anyone else to follow, or if he's not out in front, he's not as confident. But yeah, he's really being pressured by Neil right now, and Neil's pace sort of keeping to the same sort of level that it was. He's not really making any slower moves, although I have seen that Aiden's
one of his car was
quite damaged, and indeed they do make contact side by side. Thankfully, the cars aren't open wheelers, so a bit of side door contact is absolutely fine.
That was,
and then we're gonna flip, but
yeah, that was a beautiful bit of racing. Actually, I do enjoy it when it all goes well like that. And it's yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah. Not like what happened when I raced in the W12 at Suzuka. Tried to go around the outside of turn 1, admittedly maybe a bit of a silly move, but, you know, one that can work. And I got sent to the moon. So, yeah, don't try going around the outside of turn 1 at Suzuka in an open wheeler. It will end badly.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was in an LMP, though, I never would have gone for that move anyway, because I think the car's a little bit too wide for me to really risk it, but due to just the grip that the F1 cars have, it makes it... It almost makes you think about those moves that you wouldn't do in other cars, because you sort of believe that the car can do it, and the car's almost, like, urging you on to do it. It's like the car's just whispering in your ear, just like, hey, go for it. Go for it. You won't.
Well, we're coming up to 15 minutes remaining very soon. And that's gone really quick. Last time I looked at that time, it was 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah, and hopefully that that translates to you guys watching at home, as Neil Ferrier is trying to make that move. Second time of asking, do we get more car contact?
Oh, we do.
He time.
Dabbed the brakes to stay out of it. I think we saw the saw the GT3 in front of him.
Woo!
We got spooked.
Yeah. That was... Whew. That Lambo driver might be coming into the pits very shortly, and it's not for a change of tyres or fuel. As Aiden Young once again sending it up the inside and making contact.
Now that
Big
looks
contact.
like it would be more damage to Neil's car then than to Aiden's. I would expect from contact like that. Although Neil's car seems to be going all right.
Well, Neil wasn't involved. He managed to... No, he did hit him slightly, but I don't think it was too bad. Thankfully, it was side on. But yeah,
oh dear.
That car is not pointing in the way that it should. Last time I checked, your steering wheel should be pointing straight.
Oh,
and I'm not
Neil's
sure how
struggling as
Neil's is
well.
looking. I think that was Neil trying to overtake the Lamborghini and just struggling. Or no?
He just let the Lamborghini past. He lifted.
So is Neil coming into the pits? Potentially?
Nothing we can see from his steering inputs.
No. So any particular reason that he let them pass?
Aiden's still racing. He's not getting it fixed.
Well, I mean, that is... I'm not sure if I'm going to call that brave or silly, but... Yeah, Aiden Young still struggling on with very bent steering in his prototype, and maybe deciding if he only had a few laps left on his fuel, maybe he's just going to stick it out.
True, especially if he's still got a fast repair. If he's still got
true. I mean,
if he's still got a fast repair, then this damage won't matter in his next pit stop.
although, there's a lot of time to be lost through having that steering issue, and especially if you forget about it, like he's seeming to be right now.
He is struggling. He's struggling to turn left, but obviously his steering was bent to
the left.
No, his wheels were bent to the right, which is why he's having to steer to the left to keep it straight. So obviously he can't put as much steering angle in to turn left than he can right.
Which must make this hairpin quite interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, we see him go wide there for that very reason. So he could turn right really easily. He just has to let go of his wheel.
Something we wouldn't recommend travelling at whatever speeds these guys hit. 200 kilometers an hour plus, I'm sure. Surely we're going to see Aiden come into the pits now, and indeed he does come into the pit lane.
Yeah, it's not drivable for him, and Neil's got a 7-second lead on him because of that.
So maybe Aiden should have thought about coming in straight away, and that incident is indeed being looked at by our team of stewards. Always on the ball. And I wonder what they're going to say about it, because I feel as though the reason it happened was because Aiden tried to send it up the inside of a GT,
Let me try and find it, because we didn't actually see it for very long, because we saw it live, didn't we? Was it here? Yeah, there it is.
So that's already happened.
Let's go back a bit.
So watch the Mercedes in front as well. So Aiden, the Mercedes is already turning in.
Yeah, it's heading
So
to
the
the
Mercedes
apex.
has committed to the corner, and doesn't quite make it. And then Aiden dives up the inside, and
I think Aiden didn't quite make the apex either. I think he was going a little bit wide there. If you look again, Aiden starts turning.
Maybe we can see it from an onboard.
Yeah. Let me find that for us. There we go. Aiden starts turning really early, so he's going for that apex, and it doesn't.
The GT does look like he brakes really late to try and let them through.
Let me pause there for a second. Look at where Aiden's nose is pointing. If he'd hit that apex, he would be pointing towards the exit of the corner by now.
So just didn't get it turned in enough then.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think the GT3 started turning in not expecting the dive, and Aiden also went a little bit wider than he expected to as well.
It does look like the GT initially brakes so late that he lets Aiden through.
Yeah, I mean that could have been a mistake on both of their behalves, really. I think it's a difficult one.
It wasn't very communicated, I think, is the be all end all of that situation. And it's something that in multi-class racing you need to try and make sure that you're communicating what you're doing, as it can have massive implications, because the P2s, while they can change direction quite quickly, they can't really change speed very quickly. If they're committing to a corner, they're committing to the corner.
Yeah.
They're not backing out, because if they back out, it upsets the balance of the car, and spins happen, and it's not fair on anyone, as we are now getting more pit stops in from the LMP leaders. Izzo, Castellani, Grebstad all into the pit lane, and Castellani already on the back end of Dylan van der Lands, who still needs to make a pit stop. So we may actually see an overtake here from Castellani on Dylan, if we can maybe take a look and see what's going on. So Dylan van der Lands still does need to pit.
So we're going to he was overtaken in pit lane, wasn't he? Of course.
Yeah. So Dylan van der Lands still does need to pit. Lorenzo Castellani is trying to overtake him. So if Lorenzo gets past, then I'm pretty sure that'll be almost a half a lap deficit that van der Lands will have on Castellani. So a move that probably isn't the most important move to make if you're Lorenzo, but one that you'd probably like to make, so that you don't have to worry about Dylan suddenly coming into the pits right in front of you. Trying to avoid that situation wherever possible would be nice. Lorenzo Castellani, obviously the last lap was an out lap, so maybe not the fastest right now, but definitely will be up there sooner or later. And how are we looking in GT3?
Well, the closest thing on track right now is these guys over here.
But has Alessio come into the pits yet?
Uh-oh.
Because his teammates have.
1 second. I just got a scary bit of information on my telemetry.
Oh dear, hack on. Well, he's by himself.
Yeah, that's a start. And
which
there's a big gravel trap there as well, and walls are far away, so that's another good start. He's lost the rear.
This just going to be a spin on exit, isn't it? No?
No, the next one maybe? Perhaps it was him braking really hard for the pit entry that caused my telemetry to go, what? There it is.
Nope, there it is.
Okay, that's an interesting place to lose it, I think. Wonder if that means his tyres are dying slightly.
Potentially. Although he only came out of the pits last lap, so...
Oh, it might have been cold tyres then.
Yeah, you would imagine probably cold tyres rather than worn tyres, or maybe a combination of both. I don't know if the LMP guys do change tyres at all. I know that the LMP tyres are very durable. You don't need to change them in a long race. Normally, you only change them during like a second pit stop if it's really hot conditions. But I think for a lot of these guys, because the pit stop happened so late in the race, the second one at least, they'll probably save time and just not pit and just deal with the really bad tyres. As both Mercedes battling out on track, car number 666 and car number 29, and these guys need to be aware behind them. We have some very angry bees behind in the LMPs.
I just realised not only is this guy using my favourite livery, he's also using my racing number.
Oh dear, well... Are you sure he's not just you?
Yeah,
you're playing double duty.
I've got one eye and an arm on a steering wheel on a different computer by my side.
As the LMPs, finally, Castellani did get past with the help of some traffic, but yeah, interesting was the moves being made there. And if Alessio doesn't have to pit again, by the way, I think Alessio is going to win this by quite some margin. Right, we're talking at least 15 seconds, possibly, worth of lap time. As Dylan van der Lans is still trying to fight for this race lead, even though I think he still has to pit one more time. I don't think he can make it to the end of this race, but he's certainly seeming to try it. As Lars Van Ryn does get overtaken by Alessandro Izzo, as does the other Mercedes, and Lars Van Ryn going to try and maybe capitalise on some of the moves being made by the LMPs, but not quite close enough to do it. Still sends it up the inside though, a little bit of side door contact. Is Lars Van Ryn going to be able to make the move here into turn number, I believe this is turn number 4 officially, and both of them very close together still. Lars Van Ryn does get that move solidified before we go into arguably some of the toughest corners on the circuit. And that Mercedes behind him still looking very racy. João Diaz trying to fight his way past, and João Diaz currently has had a very good race so far. Lars Van Ryn not so much. Has dropped one position off the start and hasn't really been able to gain it back, so not the greatest from him. First race penalty for car number 427. 10-second penalty for causing a collision. And I believe there was a reprimand as well for car number 427 for causing a collision as well. But Lars Van Ryn needs to start thinking defensively here going into the first corner. Although João Diaz not really making any moves just yet. And it looks as though last lap wise, João Diaz was nowhere near as fast. I'm not sure if that was mainly due to traffic or anything else, but yeah, João Diaz losing a lot of time to Lars Van Ryn. But the old saying, traffic giveth and traffic taketh away, as Lars Van Ryn is now, having been overtaken by the LMPs in probably not amazing conditions, has let João Diaz right back into him, so this battle is going to keep going as traffic continues to try and drive itself between these two. And one thing I have noticed, by the way, is Dylan van der Lans still has not come into the pit lane yet. Now, with them being literally just finishing lap 35 now, they're on lap 36. Or rather, they've done 36 laps, they're on lap 37, I should say. And it's looking like Dylan van der Lands is going to try and go all the way to the end here on a one-stop strategy. Because he's got 2 more laps left of this race, pretty much. I think exactly 2 laps left of this race. We'll have 39 racing laps. Depending on how he is on fuel, potentially he's jumped Alessandro Izzo, and being in the slipstream of Lorenzo Castellani is going to mean that he can save that amount of fuel that he needs to save. So van der Lands, seemingly out of a situation where we didn't think he could maybe make it on fuel, I mean he pit on lap 19. Do you do the math on that? If he pit and the fuel tank was basically empty, then he can go until lap 38. So potentially he does have enough fuel to make it, but it's going to be close, I imagine. Imagine that last lap, he's going to be clenching a little bit in his seat. We do have 1 minute left of this race.
Oh wow, that went fast. That went really fast. What? It feels like 3 minutes ago I told you there was 15 minutes remaining. What?
Yeah. Apparently that's what happens when you focus on 2 things at once. We do have Sebastian Van den Heuvel, who does slice his way up the inside of João Diaz. You'll take shots where you can, right? But Dylan van der Lands, as I was saying, is... I mean, at this point, he is going to try and make the one-stop work. Alessio Bernardi, very much, I think, has solidified the fact that it will. Speaking of Alessio, he is behind João Diaz now, and I'm not sure what João is going to do. Whether or not he's going to try and get past, or rather João is going to let him through, or whether or not Alessio is going to have to fight his way past. I believe, yeah, João Diaz just letting him through, saying, off you go, mate, you're much faster than I am. Except maybe you can put the hammer down a little bit, please, because I would also like to not lose a whole bunch of time. But look at the gap for the race lead.
Yeah, I was just
and this is
thinking
on the final
that.
lap. They are on the final couple of corners now. Final lap of the race. They are going to cross the line. Who does ending up winning it? It is indeed Castellani, followed off by a very, very good race from Dylan van der Lands, seemingly out of absolutely nowhere, crossing the line to finish P2. Alessandro Izzo finishing P3, which for him I think is going to be a little bit disappointing, honestly. The fact that you had P2 so secure and then Dylan van der Lands managed to make the one-stop work, and managed to make the one-stop work because of your teammate giving him a slipstream for pretty much half his stint. I think is unlucky.
Yeah, that's very lucky.
Alessio Bernardi in GT3 will be your GT3 race winner. Now, is he going to make Lars Van Ryn do another lap? I believe he will. I believe Lars Van Ryn still needs to do one more lap. Or maybe not. I believe he just managed to cross the line ahead of Lars, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not Lars has to do another lap, but it does seem certainly like he is finished, due to the fact that the LMP leader has already crossed the line, so... Yeah, Luigi Naspolino will round out the top 3 in GT with Fabio Ponta finishing P2. So again, a Leo 1, 2, 3, and Alessio Bernardi with the one-stop strategy does take it over his teammate. And again, if you're Fabio Ponta, you're probably looking at that race thinking that you got done a little bit dirty, I must be honest. Qualified P1 and finished P2 because your teammate did a one-stop that you enabled. So, got done a little bit there, I think. So we'll have to wait and see what their thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on it now.
See if there is anyone in. I don't think there is anyone waiting for now, so... I do wonder if anyone is going to join us in for some interviews, or whether or not. I believe Alessio Bernardi is...
Yep, on it.
Welcome in, Alessio.
Oh,
Good result for yourself. P1. And a one-stop strategy that, honestly, I was surprised that worked.
yeah, it's been really, really difficult to save all that fuel leader, you know. I mean, I had to use various map, and I have to use the slipstream of my teammates to make sure I could save enough fuel to make it to the end. So yeah, it wasn't easy, but it worked. So I guess this was the best strategy so far.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of the one-stop strategy, I was saying it on the stream that maybe if Fabio Ponta feels a little bit hard done by when he puts it on pole, and because of the one-stop strategy, just didn't really stand a chance in terms of being able to overtake you and battle with you. But was there any sort of communication between you two about it, or was it just sort of naturally just something that happened?
No, not at all. I mean, when we face each other on track, we are enemies. So there's no communication about strategies at all. But if I could be honest, the strategy I used, it was just decided during the race. I mean, I saw that I could save enough fuel to try the one-stop strategy, and so I tried it. That's all. I mean, I haven't tried it before the race, so yeah, it was an improvisation.
And I mean, it certainly worked out for yourself. There was someone who did it in LMP as well, and you would think that in LMP at least as well, the one-stop strategy is even harder. I'm pretty sure those guys can't go as long as you guys can in the GTs on the fuel tank, but hey, you made it work, and you took home a win, which, you know, you've got to be pretty proud of that. That does your championship results at least helps you out a little bit more in terms of solidifying yourself at the top above your teammates.
Yeah, well, I make some gap from them in the standing, so yeah, I mean, I had the best result in this race, so I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And next one out, we are going to Sebring. What are your thoughts on Sebring?
Well, it's a really, really tricky track to drive, even to make a right setups because of the bumps, because of the curbs as well. So yeah, Sebring leaves no mistakes to be made at any driver. Any mistakes could cost you the race, could cost you the car as well. So you have to make sure to be as clean as possible, and just to make a good pace on the race, and yeah, bring the car to the end.
Yeah, indeed. That is one thing that we will be seeing a lot of, obviously, is people trying to respect the bumps, as the saying goes. And yeah, I'm certainly very excited for that one. I'm sure you're going to be getting in some practice as well, if time allows, and trying to figure out what the strategy is, and maybe even pulling off another one-stop strategy. But before we let you go, Alessio, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
I'll just thank you guys for the organization. I really enjoy those kind of races and this championship as well. So I am really, really thankful to you guys. Thank you.
And again, thank you to yourself as well for giving us all of the lovely action to commentate on. Wouldn't be the same without you guys as well. So, you know, massive shout out goes to the drivers and, as we say, everyone else involved. But Alessio, again, congratulations on the P1, mate. I'll let you go off and celebrate with whatever it is you feel like you need to celebrate with.
I need a beer right now. Could we say it's alive? By the way, thank you again, and see you on to next one, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you again next week. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Okay, so
There
I
he was.
can't get hold of the P1 of LMP2, so I can't get hold of Lorenzo, unfortunately. But there is a couple of LMP2 drivers who do want to talk to us, who are waiting along. So I'm just going to drag those in.
Yeah, so Lorenzo saying that he couldn't join in for today due to, I'm assuming, some sort of commitment. But we do have a few of the other LMP drivers in here to give their thoughts on what happened. And Neil, we'll start with yourself. Welcome in, mate. And how do you feel the race went?
To be honest with you, it wasn't bad considering I think I only signed up for the race like 45 minutes, or signed up for the rest of the season for like 45 minutes before the race actually went live. So never really had much time to work on a setup, and I just bolted a Silverstone setup on. So I think it went no bad. Obviously, come out like I like committing to a league, especially it's hard because I do the TCR stuff on a Tuesday night as well. So yeah, it was nice to jump in and support this championship as well.
Yeah, and again, Neil, mate, it is, you say you do the TCR stuff, so, you're used to front engine, not front engine, but like front wheel drive, I should say. And what is that difference like, as in practicing for the TCR and then moving over to something like the LMPs?
To be honest with you, I don't really struggle with the front wheel drive to the rear wheel drive thing. I drive the TCR car quite loose. So when you jump back into a rear wheel drive car like the LMP2, I find it quite easy. So I don't personally find it a big issue. I think the TCR is a wee bit more pernickety how to drive that than the LMP2 is because of the downforce and stuff. But yeah, both great leagues, and I thoroughly enjoy racing. Obviously, my first night in the LMP2 in this league, but I enjoy racing with ASR, and I think I'm going to be supporting the community a wee bit more. I'll probably try and sign up for the new leagues at the start of next season as well, and show a bit more support as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's so cool to see you here, and obviously with all those nice comments you have as well. We're sure everybody in ACR is, sorry, ASR, ACR, don't know who that is, but ASR, we welcome in. And, the race for you, considering you only had, you literally only had, you said, like 45 minutes, right? And you used a Silverstone setup on a P2. To put yourself P5, you got to be proud with it, right? You got to be happy with it.
I'll take it any day of the week. It's not very often I jump into a session with that short amount of time and dial myself in pretty fast, to be honest with you. It's not very often I've raced a P2 around Catalunya as well, so jump on a circuit that I've not raced that much and bolt on a setup that clearly wasn't made for that circuit. I'll take the qualifying result and the race result. Unfortunately, I never used my race brain and started fuel saving early in the first stint to try and make it a shorter or a one-stop strategy. I was kind of hoping that the guys in front maybe just went flat out for the start and then also had to do a second stop. But I've learnt my lesson, and I'll move on to Sebring next week.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And we can't wait to see you out there in Sebring, a circuit that definitely for the P2s is going to be a tricky one, especially trying to overtake those GTs in some of those corners. But before we let you go, mate, is there anyone you want to give a massive shout out to?
Just the 4XR boys. Obviously, as you would have seen in the stream, if you've seen me, I'm wearing a Chrissy Rouse livery, which is it's a wee thing that I feel supports the family who Chrissy sadly lost his life at Darlington Park a few weeks ago at BSB. So big shout out to the family and a big shout out to the 4XR boys, and obviously you guys for putting the live stream on as well. So see you all next week.
Well, what a good cause as well to have on the livery. And yeah, I'm sure we will see you back next week, mate. And yeah, we'll let you go. And next up, we will talk to another driver in the P2 category, Costa, who didn't manage to finish the race. But Costa, I believe this was your first race out. How do you think it went for yourself, mate?
It could have gone better. Obviously, had a bit of an issue with Zhao in the GT3, but I felt terrible. I don't know why, but the car on the circuit just didn't click. And I did better times in practice, then I was on and off pace a bit, and it just didn't go to plan.
And you said that you weren't a massive fan of the circuit. Is this one that you've practiced a lot, or was it just sort of turned up and didn't really have a setup going?
I used a setup from an old endurance race which I did here. Well, I didn't do it, but I practiced for it, and I didn't get to C-class in time. But I've been practicing all day, and it just didn't work out.
And in terms of the next race out, obviously we've got Sebring. Are we going to see you out there, and are we going to see maybe some setup improvements and maybe a little bit of a different strategy from yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to Kevin and see if I can get into a GT3 instead, because the LMP2 is just not working out for me.
Yeah, fair enough. And we'll have to wait and see what the result of that one is. And I'm sure that we'll obviously see you out next time by. And hopefully in a car that maybe suits yourself a little bit better. You say that, maybe the car doesn't quite feel right. So maybe switching to the GT3 would help. But in terms of Sebring, what are your thoughts on the track?
Quite difficult. I've tried it before, but I watched the Krentic 12-hour and it just looked a nightmare. So dealing with traffic, if we have to deal with traffic, just going to be one of them.
Yeah, it definitely isn't the easiest track in the world, and is definitely one that it's going to require a little bit of patience from everyone involved. I think trying to overtake in LMP and GT is going to be really difficult to do, but. As I say, hopefully we'll see you out next week. And before we let you go, is there anyone else you want to sort of give a shout out to?
Before X Boys, like Ryan, Brad, Neil, all them lot, who's obviously made delivery on the car, and Ryan gave me the setup. So shout out to him for sort of giving me a good race, because without the setup it would have been even worse. But
well, again, mate, can't wait to see you out next week. And I'll let you head off. I'm sure you will need to, go get yourself some drink, maybe some food as well.
Yeah, probably.
Get yourself ready for Sebring. And that'll do it from us here in ASR for round number 8 at Barcelona, Catalunya. And before we go, Gerard, are there any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just really surprised how quick that was, to be honest. Like, the opening of it, where all the action happened, seemed to go in slow motion. And then as soon as it even started getting quieter, I looked at the time once, looked at it again, it was the end of the race.
And I mean, it was eventful, I think is fair to say. And we can't wait to be back out here at Sebring. But for now, this has been Ava, joined by Gerard as always. Love working on the cams, and we will see you all next week.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you let me eat my weight in glee. I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. Some days I feel skinnier than all the other days. Sometimes I can't tell if my body belongs to me. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.